You can change the way your mind works while you sleep. This audio method trains your deeper mind to favor steady action, calm focus, and clear decisions, so mornings stop being a struggle. Hear a calm voice guide simple phrases, timed with slow breathing and subtle cues that the brain accepts without argument. Feel the room soften, the tension in your shoulders ease, and the breath slow as your mind receives direct practical instructions tied to real small actions you can take tomorrow. This video explains why short nightly routines outperform random motivation, how to craft phrases that the subconscious accepts, and a step-by-step plan to build an audio you can use tonight. You will get exact wording examples, timing tips, and a simple ritual that fits into any schedule. Real change starts with small, consistent moves, and this method gives you a tool to make those moves automatic. Watch through to the end to get a ready-to-use nightly script and a clear practice you can try immediately. If you commit to a few minutes each night, the next morning will feel more focused, productive, and less like a battle. Chapter 1: Train subconscious nightly to accept success beliefs. Train your subconscious nightly to accept success beliefs by building a simple, disciplined routine that becomes non-negotiable, and by feeding the mind steady, consistent messages that are believable, repeatable, and tied to real action. Begin with the understanding that the subconscious does not argue with logic the way conscious thought does. It learns through repetition, association, and emotional weight. A thought repeated enough times becomes a pattern. A pattern repeated over days and weeks becomes an expectation. An expectation shapes behavior without the need for constant willpower. That is the practical core of this chapter. This is not about wishful thinking or vague hope. This is about designing a nightly system that trains the deeper part of the mind to accept new beliefs about competence, discipline, and identity, so waking choices become easier and progress becomes reliable. First, make the environment around sleep a training ground rather than a chaotic exit from the day. Light, sound, and routine shape the transition from conscious input to the fertile state where the subconscious absorbs signals. Start by setting a strict sleep window. Go to bed and wake up at roughly the same time every day, even if life is busy. Consistency in timing entrains circadian rhythms and sharpens memory consolidation. Turn off screens at least 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Blue light interferes with hormonal cues and makes the brain more reactive rather than receptive. Replace screen time with quiet, intentional activity. This can be reading a short practical passage that reinforces a desired belief, practicing a measured breathing exercise, or listening to a carefully prepared short audio designed to reinforce specific success beliefs. Make one small change at a time until these behaviors are automatic. The most powerful changes are the ones that do not rely on heroic willpower, but on gentle inevitability. Second, select beliefs that are specific, believable, and actionable. The subconscious resists statements that feel too extreme or inconsistent with current lived experience. If the mind hears a claim that is wildly at odds with current evidence, it will create friction and rejection. Instead, choose beliefs that stretch current reality but do not shatter it. For example, replace the vague ambition to become wealthy with a specific identity shift, such as I manage my time to complete important work daily. Replace the amorphous desire to be confident with the concrete practice, I speak clearly and calmly in small group settings. Small, believable steps create momentum. Each night reinforce one or two targeted beliefs rather than a long list. Keep statements brief, direct, and present tense. Avoid hypothetical language. The subconscious learns best from the immediate, simple present. Third, craft nightly audio or spoken phrases with 3 key qualities: brevity, emotional grounding, and repetition. An audio track that uses short, direct phrases recorded in a calm, steady voice is more effective than one that rambles. Use statements that describe behavior, identity, and outcome in 3 parts. For example, say, I prepare my plan each evening, then I complete important tasks before noon, and then I feel secure because progress is measurable. This sequence ties action, identity, and emotion. Record these in your own voice, or use a voice you find calming and credible. Hearing the same voice repeatedly forms a familiarity that dissolves doubt. Keep the track under 20 minutes. The goal is to repeat core phrases multiple times rather than to listen to an hour of mixed content. Repetition builds neural pathways. A 5-minute loop played 3 times is superior to a single hour of scattered content. Fourth, pair belief statements with small sensory cues so memory consolidation is strengthened. Sensory cues are useful anchors. Choose a single subtle cue to pair with each belief cycle. It could be a gentle chime, a soft fingertip tap on the chest, a lavender scent, or a specific breathing pattern. The cue must be consistent and simple. The process is straightforward. Play the audio and at the key phrase perform the cue. Repeat this consistently for weeks. Over time, the cue alone can trigger the pattern quickly and automatically. This technique helps the subconscious to link abstract belief to concrete bodily state, making the new belief feel embodied rather than theoretical. Fifth, use the final waking minutes and first waking minutes for reinforcement. The moments just before sleep and just after waking are high leverage. Memory consolidation is most active around these transitions. Create a short pre-sleep script of 3 sentences that you say aloud quietly and slowly, then perform a short exhale releasing tension. These sentences should be the same ones used in your audio practice earlier, so the system remains consistent. On waking, spend 30 seconds in stillness, repeating the first sentence of the script with attention to breath. This dual window primes the brain for internalization. Over weeks, this double exposure strengthens the new belief faster than practicing at other times alone. Sixth, measure and adapt. Keep a simple journal of small wins and evidence that supports the new belief. If the belief is "I complete important work before noon," then each day note one specific task that was completed and how it felt. Evidence counters doubt. The subconscious absorbs the feeling data as proof. When the mind says this is not true, the journal provides direct counterexamples. Review the journal weekly and note trends. If a belief is consistently failing, adjust the statement to a more believable version and scale expectations. Training the subconscious is iterative. Move forward with patient rigor, not with impatience. Seventh, use short physical rituals to signal commitment. Rituals anchor identity. Before the audio practice, stand tall, take 3 deliberate breaths, and say the first phrase out loud. Physical posture influences internal state. The body listens to the brain, and the brain in turn listens to the body. A short, consistent ritual is a handshake between conscious intent and automatic programs. Over time, rituals reduce friction. They remove the need for argument. The day that practice is skipped feels different because the ritual is part of how identity is expressed. Eighth, manage internal resistance with the Stoic method of labeling and action. Resistance will come. It appears as avoidance, excuses, or rationalizations. When resistance appears, name it descriptively without moralizing. For example, label the thought "this is avoidance," not "this is failure." Then act immediately with a tiny motion that breaks the momentum. If the plan is to do a 5-minute audio, then sit up or press play. The combination of naming and immediate small action trains the mind that feelings need not govern behavior. Repeating this approach nightly weakens the power of avoidance and strengthens the habit loop. Ninth, integrate physical health practices that improve sleep quality because the subconscious learns best during deep restorative sleep. Maintain regular exercise but avoid intense workouts late at night. Eat with awareness and stop heavy meals at least 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Reduce caffeine and alcohol in the evening because both fragment deep sleep and reduce the consolidation of new patterns. Hydration is important, but avoid excessive fluid intake right before bed to prevent nighttime awakenings. A body that rests well offers a brain that accepts new programs efficiently. Good sleep hygiene is not optional when training the core mind. 10th, remember the relationship between sleep learning and waking action. Subconscious training is not a passive way to get success without doing the work. The audio trains tendencies and makes certain choices easier, but actual progress requires daily work. Design daily micro-actions that are aligned with nightly beliefs. If the belief is improved discipline, then the micro-action could be a single focused 25-minute work block each morning. If the belief is improved confidence, then practice one brief conversation each day where the focus is on listening and clear response. The subconscious adopts identity through repeated behavior. Nighttime programming reduces friction and makes these behaviors more likely, but the behaviors themselves are the proof. 11th, hold to a tone of realism and firm expectation. Stoic practice is not about forcing emotions, but about directing attention and choosing action regardless of emotional state. Train the habit of acting on principle rather than waiting for motivation. Keep beliefs framed around what can be controlled. Replace "I will be rich" with "I complete work that produces value consistently each day." The first statement appeals to desire, the second appeals to agency. Subconscious training favors agency. Statements that highlight control strengthen responsibility and reduce the tendency to blame external circumstances. 12th, avoid flooding the system with too many changes at once. The subconscious forms stronger, longer-lasting patterns when repetition is focused. Choose a single core belief to emphasize for a minimum of 4 weeks. After 4 weeks, evaluate and add a second belief if the first has become more stable. This layered approach builds a foundation. Attempting to reprogram 10 beliefs at once leads to superficial change and eventual relapse. A narrow, deep approach is superior to a wide, shallow one. 13th, use accountability and social reinforcement. Share the practice with one trusted person or a small accountability partner. Declare the specific belief and the exact nightly routine to that person. Social expectation increases follow-through and creates more consistent practice. The partner does not need to check every night, but occasional confirmation and shared progress creates external evidence that complements internal experience. If a partner is not available, join a small group or an online community where short daily check-ins are normal. External patterns help internalize change. 14th, remain patient with setbacks. Progress is not linear. There will be nights when life disrupts routine, travel interrupts sleep, or strong emotions create restlessness. Respond to these setbacks with a pragmatic plan rather than shame. Re-establish the routine the next night. The Stoic perspective treats obstacles as data rather than moral failure. Every setback provides information about weak points in the system. Use that information to adjust schedules, environment, or phrasing of the audio. Small, consistent corrections accumulate to major shifts. 15th, integrate brief reflective review as a closing ritual. Spend 2 minutes before turning out the light to briefly note one small thing that went well that day and one small step for tomorrow. This short review provides the subconscious with positive evidence and a clear next step, which reduces nighttime rumination. The brain resolves unfinished tasks by encoding them for future action. Offer the subconscious a concrete next step so it does not default to worry. This short review is both practical and calming. 16th, employ conditional reinforcement to strengthen desired behaviors. Pair small rewards with consistent practice. Rewards should be immediate, specific, and not undermine the long-term goal. For example, after 7 consecutive nights of practice, permit a small treat, such as a favorite coffee or an hour of creative time. Small, consistent rewards build positive association without creating dependency on big external validation. The aim is to condition the brain to enjoy the near-term process of practice rather than only craving distant outcomes. 17th, maintain clarity of purpose. Regularly revisit the reason behind the belief. Why does adopting this belief matter right now? How will it show up in daily life? How will it change relationships, work, and inner experience? Purpose grounds persistence. On nights when repetition feels mechanical, the clarity of purpose rekindles energy. Purpose connects tiny daily acts to a larger, meaningful direction, and the subconscious forms stronger connections when actions are meaningful. 18th, use language that reduces moral judgment and increases curiosity. If progress stalls, avoid harsh self-talk. Replace moral condemnation with curiosity-driven adjustment. This aligns with discipline rather than self-flagellation. Curious observation leads to testing small modifications and learning faster. The subconscious responds to tone. Messages of compassion with firm expectation tend to be more effective than messages of condemnation. 19th, practice progressive intensification. As the belief strengthens, increase the difficulty of aligned waking tasks in measured increments. If the belief involves discipline, then gradually expand the focused work window or reduce reliance on planning tools. If the belief involves confidence, then progressively increase the social stakes of practice. Progressive intensification creates adaptive stress that builds resilience. The subconscious learns not only the new belief, but how to operate under varied conditions. 20th, commit to long-term identity building rather than short-term fixes. The most powerful and lasting change is identity change. Nightly training is not about temporary boosts of willpower, it is about becoming the kind of person who naturally takes effective action. This requires months and often years of steady practice. Celebrate consistency and the small shifts in perception that indicate deeper transformation. The mind will gradually accept new truths, and the actions that follow will align naturally with these truths. Practical nightly routine to implement tomorrow. Decide on one specific belief that is believable and tied to action. Write it in present tense and make it brief. Prepare a 5 to 15-minute audio loop composed of the belief repeated calmly with slight variation emphasizing action, identity, and outcome. Choose one sensory cue and pair it with the belief in the audio. Establish a pre-sleep ritual of 3 steady breaths, posture, and the first spoken sentence. Create a waking ritual of 30 seconds of stillness and the first sentence repeated. Keep a simple evidence journal with 1 line per day noting the specific behavior that aligned with the belief. Use a weekly review to adjust the statement or routine. Add 1 small reward for a 7-day streak. If resistance appears, label it and act with a small immediate motion. Iterate on the script if it no longer feels believable. Keep the system simple and unambiguous. Stories of application often clarify method. Consider the person who wanted more consistent focus at work. A belief was chosen: I complete 1 focused task before checking any messages. The nightly audio repeated this phrase and described the feelings of calm and competence after completing focused work. A small sensory cue of a soft chime was used each time the phrase was repeated. After 2 weeks, the person noticed mornings were less chaotic and the brain anticipated the small win. That anticipation created a positive loop that reduced the urge to check messages first. The identity shifted from reactive to deliberate. Over months, this new identity produced measurable improvements in output and in the sense of agency. Another example involves improving emotional steadiness. The chosen belief was: I respond calmly and clearly to conflict. The nightly script rehearsed short behavioral steps, such as breathing for 5 counts, pausing before speaking, and asking 1 clarifying question. The person paired a hand on the chest cue with the phrase. When stress occurred, the body memory triggered a pause, and the practice made the pause more likely. This small pause transformed many interactions and produced better outcomes because measured response tends to solve more problems than reactive response. A final caution about perfectionism. The system works through consistent repetition, not single perfect performances. Avoid the trap of assuming that if the practice is not ideal, it is useless. Imperfect repetition builds the pathways just as well as perfect practice. Aim for steady progress rather than flawless execution. A solid 2 weeks of regular practice with some missed nights beats an idealized plan that never starts. Accept that the subconscious is a powerful ally when treated with clarity, respect, and consistency. Train it like a craft. The tools are simple, consistent timing, intentional statements, sensory anchors, and aligned waking behavior. The approach is disciplined, kind, and pragmatic. Over time, the deeper mind will not only accept success beliefs, but will begin to generate opportunities and actions that align with those beliefs. The result is not an overnight miracle, but a steady transformation where small, reliable choices compound into meaningful life changes. In closing, hold firm to one principle. Progress is not a matter of forcing emotion, but of training systems. Build a modest nightly system and protect it with the same discipline that guards any valuable habit. Keep the statements believable, anchor them in action, and measure the evidence. Respond to setbacks with practical adjustments. Over weeks and months, the subconscious will stop resisting the idea of success and start acting in ways that make success inevitable. Commit to that slow, steady work, and the quiet power of the night will become one of the most reliable forces in daily life. Chapter 2. Reprogram thoughts during sleep for consistent daily action. Building confidence by repeating affirmations before sleep is not about pretending you are someone you are not. It is about teaching the mind to recognize what you are capable of when fear is no longer given authority. Confidence is often misunderstood as a loud presence or constant certainty. In reality, it is quiet trust in your ability to respond well, even under pressure. That trust is built when the mind repeatedly hears clear statements that align with real behavior and lived experience, especially during moments when the mind is most open to learning. Before sleep, the mind shifts from analysis to absorption. Defenses soften. Inner dialogue slows. This state is ideal for shaping self-perception. During the day, affirmations can feel forced because the conscious mind challenges them. At night, the mind listens more than it argues. This is why repetition before sleep is powerful when done correctly. Affirmations must be grounded. Empty praise creates resistance. The subconscious rejects exaggeration. Statements must feel firm but reasonable. Confidence grows when the mind hears messages that are achievable and tied to effort. Instead of saying you are flawless or unstoppable, affirm that you are capable of learning, adjusting, and acting with control. Confidence built on reality lasts longer than confidence built on fantasy. The first step is choosing affirmations that describe behavior rather than image. The mind trusts actions. Statements such as "I speak clearly when I prepare" or "I remain steady when facing difficulty" point toward conduct. These types of affirmations train the mind to associate confidence with choices rather than appearance or approval. When confidence is tied to action, it becomes dependable. Tone matters. Affirmations spoken with desperation weaken their effect. Speak slowly, evenly, and without emotional strain. The voice should sound like instruction, not pleading. This tone communicates authority. The subconscious responds better to calm certainty than emotional intensity. Speak as if you are stating a fact that is already forming. Repetition is what transforms statements into belief. One night changes little. Repeated nights shape expectation. The mind begins to anticipate behaving in accordance with what it hears. Over time, the statements feel less like words and more like descriptions. That shift marks the beginning of genuine confidence. Avoid stacking too many affirmations. Focus strengthens impact. Choose 3 or 4 statements that address areas where confidence is most often tested. This might be communication, decision-making, follow-through, or emotional steadiness. Keep the list short. The mind learns depth faster than breadth. Confidence also depends on how failure is interpreted. Affirmations should include acceptance of imperfection. Statements that allow room for mistakes prevent self-criticism from undermining progress. Affirm that you learn from errors and continue forward. This builds resilience, which is a deeper form of confidence than surface-level assurance. The physical state before sleep supports mental absorption. Sit or lie comfortably. Release tension in the jaw and shoulders. A relaxed body signals safety. When the body feels safe, the mind is more receptive. Confidence grows best in an environment of calm control. Do not rush through affirmations. Speed suggests doubt. Allow pauses between statements. Silence gives the mind space to register meaning. The goal is not to overwhelm the mind, but to guide it gently and consistently. Confidence is strengthened when affirmations are paired with memory. After stating an affirmation, briefly recall a moment where you acted in alignment with it. The moment does not need to be dramatic. Small examples carry weight. The subconscious uses memory as evidence. Evidence transforms repetition into belief. If the mind challenges an affirmation, do not argue. Adjust the wording. Resistance indicates that the statement exceeds current belief. Modify it until it feels honest. Growth happens when the mind accepts the message without internal conflict. Progress is steady when trust is maintained. Confidence built before sleep influences morning behavior. When the mind expects competence, it approaches tasks differently. Posture changes. Speech slows. Decisions feel clearer. These are not conscious efforts. They are expressions of internal alignment. Avoid comparing affirmations to external standards. Confidence is personal. It is about consistency with your values and responsibilities. The mind grows stronger when it focuses inward. External comparison creates instability because it shifts the standard constantly. Affirmations should reinforce responsibility rather than entitlement. Confidence that depends on outcomes is fragile. Confidence that depends on effort is stable. Reinforce your commitment to preparation, honesty, and persistence. These are qualities within your control. Nightly affirmations also shape emotional regulation. When you affirm your ability to remain calm and composed, the mind rehearses that state. Over time, calm becomes familiar. Familiar states are easier to access under stress. This is how confidence becomes visible in difficult situations. Do not seek immediate emotional uplift. The effect of affirmations is cumulative. The mind changes gradually. Expect subtle shifts rather than dramatic transformation. Subtle changes compound into strong identity over time. Confidence grows when words and actions align. If affirmations are repeated without corresponding behavior, credibility is lost. Choose statements that you can support through daily effort. This preserves integrity. Integrity strengthens confidence more than praise. If a day goes poorly, do not abandon the practice. Use affirmations to restore direction, not to deny reality. Acknowledge difficulty and reaffirm commitment. This teaches the mind that confidence is not conditional on perfect days. The Stoic approach values mastery over reaction. Affirmations should reinforce your ability to choose response over impulse. Confidence is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to act with clarity despite emotion. Over weeks of repetition, self-talk changes naturally. Negative assumptions weaken. Neutral observation increases. Confidence emerges as stability rather than bravado. Others may notice the change before you do. The most effective affirmations are those that feel slightly challenging but not overwhelming. They should invite growth without triggering defense. This balance keeps the mind engaged without resistance. Affirmations before sleep are a form of training. They are not magic words. They are instructions given at a time when the mind is most receptive. When repeated with discipline and honesty, they reshape internal dialogue. Eventually, the mind begins to generate supportive thoughts on its own. This is the sign that affirmations have been internalized. Confidence then becomes self-sustaining. Protect this practice from distraction. Treat it as part of your discipline. Confidence is built in quiet moments of consistency, not in public displays. Over time, you will notice a reduction in hesitation. Decisions become cleaner. Speech becomes more measured. Presence becomes steadier. These are signs of internal alignment. Building confidence through affirmations before sleep is a patient process. It requires respect for the mind and commitment to truth. When practiced consistently, it creates a foundation that supports action, resilience, and growth. Confidence does not announce itself. It reveals itself through calm action and steady judgment. This is the kind of confidence that endures. Chapter 30. Build confidence by repeating affirmations before sleep. Reprogramming thoughts during sleep for consistent daily action begins with a clear and honest understanding of why action breaks down in the first place. Most people do not fail because they lack desire or intelligence. They fail because their minds are trained to delay, to wait for the right mood, or to react instead of initiate. During the day, the conscious mind is busy managing noise, pressure, and emotion. At night, that noise fades. The guard lowers. This is where patterns are either reinforced or rewritten. Sleep is not an escape from responsibility. It is a preparation ground for it. The mind does not wake up motivated by chance. It wakes up prepared or unprepared based on what it absorbed before rest. Thoughts repeated before sleep do not stay idle. They are processed, sorted, and stored. When those thoughts are unclear or scattered, the next day begins with hesitation. When they are structured and deliberate, the day begins with movement. Consistent daily action is not a personality trait. It is a trained response. Begin by redefining what action means. Action does not mean doing everything. It means doing the next necessary thing without debate. The subconscious avoids complexity. It prefers simple instructions tied to behavior. Before sleep, reduce tomorrow to 1 or 2 clear actions that matter. Not a list of wishes. Not vague intentions. Specific behaviors that can be executed regardless of mood. The clearer the instruction, the easier it is for the mind to follow through. The mistake many make is trying to motivate themselves emotionally before sleep. Emotion is unstable. Discipline is reliable. Instead of trying to feel inspired, focus on clarity. Ask a direct question quietly and without tension: what is the first action that must be taken tomorrow for progress to continue? Do not answer with 10 things. Answer with 1. That answer becomes the focus of mental programming. Thoughts during sleep influence behavior through familiarity. When the brain encounters a situation it has already rehearsed, resistance drops. This is why repetition matters. Before sleep, calmly run through the first moments of the next day, not in a dramatic or emotional way. Simply observe yourself waking, standing, and beginning the chosen task. No fantasy, no exaggeration. Just quiet rehearsal. The brain registers this as a known path rather than a threat. Consistency comes from removing the decision point. Most people waste energy deciding whether to act. Nighttime mental training removes that decision. When the mind already accepts that action will occur, it no longer asks for permission in the morning. This is how action becomes automatic. To reprogram effectively, timing matters. The final 15 minutes before sleep are more influential than an hour earlier. Protect this window. Avoid arguments, stimulating content, or planning overload. Stimulation excites the mind but does not prepare it. Calm focus prepares it. Sit or lie comfortably. Slow the breath, not forcefully, just enough to signal safety and control. A calm nervous system absorbs instruction more effectively. Use language that directs behavior, not outcomes. The subconscious responds to verbs, words like begin, complete, review, write, stand, start. Avoid words that describe results without process. Success without action has no structure. Action gives the mind a clear path. For example, instead of thinking about being productive, repeat a simple behavioral directive, such as I begin work without delay after preparing my space. This directs a sequence. The mind learns sequences faster than concepts. Over time, these sequences become habits that require less effort. One critical element is emotional neutrality. The goal is not to hype yourself up. Overstimulation before sleep often leads to restless nights and scattered mornings. Calm authority is more effective. Speak to the mind the way a steady mentor would. Clear, firm, unemotional. This tone builds trust internally. Resistance may appear as boredom or impatience with repetition. This is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that the old pattern feels threatened. When this happens, reduce intensity rather than quit. Shorten the rehearsal. Keep the instruction simple. Consistency matters more than duration. A few minutes every night builds more momentum than occasional long sessions. Daily action also depends on energy management. Thoughts during sleep influence how the body allocates energy the next day. When the mind anticipates meaningful action, it conserves energy for it. When the mind expects chaos or indecision, energy is scattered. This is why clear mental direction before sleep often results in waking with steadier focus. Avoid multitasking in mental rehearsal. Focus on one action chain. If you try to rehearse an entire day, the mind treats it as noise. Precision creates impact. One task done consistently creates a sense of control that spreads into other areas naturally. Another powerful practice is mental closure. Unfinished loops drain attention. Before sleep, acknowledge what was not completed without judgment. Then state clearly when it will be addressed. This reassures the mind that nothing is being ignored. When the mind feels organized, it rests deeper. Deeper rest improves consolidation of behavioral programming. The goal is not to control every thought during sleep. That is neither realistic nor necessary. The goal is to plant clear instructions that guide default behavior. When pressure arises during the day, the mind returns to its defaults. Train the default, and you train the response. Consistency in action also requires forgiveness. Not emotional indulgence, but realistic adjustment. If a day falls short, do not carry that failure into the next night. Sleep is a reset point. Each night is a chance to realign. Carrying guilt into rest programs hesitation. Carrying clarity programs movement. Avoid comparing progress to others. Comparison fragments focus. The subconscious thrives on internal benchmarks. Measure success by whether the first action was taken, not how impressive the result was. Action taken is success. Repeated action is transformation. A calm but firm internal standard is essential. Decide what level of effort is acceptable and commit to it, not perfection. Reliability. When the mind knows what is expected, it complies more readily. Ambiguity creates friction. Over time, this nightly practice builds trust between intention and behavior. The mind learns that when instruction is given, action follows. This trust reduces inner conflict. Less conflict means less wasted energy. Less wasted energy means more consistent output. Many underestimate how powerful quiet repetition is. Loud motivation fades quickly. Quiet discipline endures. Reprogramming thoughts during sleep is not dramatic. It is subtle. But subtle forces applied consistently shape outcomes more reliably than bursts of effort. As days pass, you may notice that starting becomes easier. This is not because tasks became easier, but because resistance was trained out. Action no longer feels like a negotiation. It feels like a continuation of a decision already made. This practice also builds self-respect. Each time you act as planned, confidence grows quietly. Not from praise, but from evidence. Evidence is the foundation of belief. The subconscious accepts what is proven repeatedly through action. Protect this practice. Treat the moments before sleep as a responsibility, not a luxury. What you allow into your mind at night becomes the structure of your next day. Choose deliberately. In time, consistent daily action will feel less like effort and more like identity. You will not think of yourself as someone trying to be disciplined. You will see yourself as someone who acts. This shift changes how challenges are perceived. Obstacles become tasks. Tasks become routines. Routines become progress. Reprogramming thoughts during sleep is not about escaping effort. It is about directing effort efficiently. When the mind and body move in the same direction, less force is required. This alignment is built quietly, nightly, through clarity, repetition, and calm authority. Commit to this process without urgency. Urgency creates tension. Steadiness creates results. Night by night, the mind learns what is expected. Day by day, action follows. This is how consistency is built. Not through pressure, but through preparation. Chapter 40. Eliminate limiting beliefs through focused nightly mental practice. Eliminating limiting beliefs through focused nightly mental practice begins with recognizing that most limits are learned habits of thought rather than fixed truths. These beliefs were not chosen deliberately. They were absorbed over time through repetition, emotional experiences, and interpretation of past events. Because they were learned, they can be unlearned. Nightly mental practice works because it reaches the mind when it is quiet enough to question old assumptions without defending them. A limiting belief often sounds reasonable on the surface. It speaks in a familiar voice. It says things like, "This is just how I am," or "This is how life works for people like me." These statements feel factual because they have been repeated internally for years. The danger is not that they are loud. The danger is that they feel normal. Nighttime practice allows you to observe these thoughts without being pulled into them. The first step is awareness without judgment. During the day, many beliefs run automatically. At night, slow down and notice which thoughts consistently reduce action or confidence. Do not argue with them yet. Simply identify them. Naming a belief creates distance. Distance weakens its control. The mind cannot change what it refuses to see. Once identified, do not attempt to destroy a belief through force. Resistance strengthens what it opposes. Instead, weaken it through replacement. The subconscious does not like empty space. If a belief is removed without a substitute, it will return. Focused nightly practice works by gradually shifting the narrative toward one that is more accurate and useful. Replacement beliefs must be grounded in evidence and possibility. A belief such as "I always fail" is too vague to challenge during the day because it feels emotionally loaded. At night, calmly counter it with a statement that introduces nuance. For example, "I have failed before and I have also learned and progressed." This is not optimism. It is accuracy. Accuracy erodes false limits. Nighttime mental practice should be structured but gentle. Choose one limiting belief to work on at a time. Overloading the mind creates confusion. Sit or lie comfortably and slow the breath. This signals safety. A mind that feels safe is willing to revise old conclusions. Bring the limiting belief into awareness. Do not repeat it excessively. Acknowledge it once, then introduce the replacement belief slowly. Speak it internally or quietly aloud. Keep the tone calm and neutral. Emotional intensity is not required. Clarity is more effective than passion. Focused practice involves repetition over time, not emotional breakthroughs. Each night, repeat the replacement belief in the same form. Consistency builds familiarity. Familiar ideas feel safer. When a belief feels safe, the mind allows behavior to align with it. Limiting beliefs often attach to identity. Statements like "I am not the type of person who succeeds" or "I am bad at consistency" are examples. Identity-based limits are powerful because they feel permanent. To dissolve them, shift the language from identity to behavior. Replace "I am bad at consistency" with "I am learning to act consistently through practice." This reframes change as a process rather than a contradiction. Nightly practice is also a time to reinterpret past experiences. Many limits are built on single events that were generalized incorrectly. During focused practice, briefly recall an event that seems to support the limiting belief, then reinterpret it through a broader lens. Ask what was learned rather than what was lost. This reprocessing weakens the emotional charge attached to the memory. The goal is not to erase the past but to remove its authority over the future. When the emotional weight of old experiences is reduced, the belief loses urgency. Without urgency, it stops directing behavior. Focused practice benefits from simplicity. Avoid complex visualization or elaborate techniques. The mind responds best to direct statements repeated in a relaxed state. Complexity engages analysis. Simplicity encourages absorption. Do not expect immediate relief. Limiting beliefs dissolve gradually. Progress often appears as reduced intensity rather than complete disappearance. A belief that once stopped action may now only cause brief hesitation. That is improvement. Recognize it. Progress acknowledged is progress reinforced. Consistency is more important than duration. A short focused practice done nightly is more effective than occasional long sessions. The mind learns through pattern. Make the practice predictable. Same time, same place, same phrasing. Predictability builds trust internally. Emotional reactions may surface during practice. Old beliefs are often tied to fear or disappointment. When emotion arises, observe it without engaging. Allow it to pass. The act of remaining steady teaches the mind that old beliefs are no longer threats. Avoid self-criticism if attention wanders. Gently return to the practice. Discipline without harshness creates resilience. Harshness reinforces limitation by framing growth as punishment. Nighttime is also when the mind integrates meaning. Use this time to reinforce the idea that beliefs are tools, not truths. A belief is useful if it supports action and responsibility. If it restricts effort or accountability, it no longer serves you. This perspective empowers choice. Limiting beliefs often survive because they offer comfort through predictability. Growth introduces uncertainty. Focused nightly practice gradually increases tolerance for uncertainty. As tolerance increases, action expands. Do not attempt to replace a belief with its opposite. Extreme shifts trigger rejection. Move incrementally. Replace never with sometimes. Replace cannot with learning. These small shifts feel acceptable and open pathways for change. Track subtle changes in behavior. Notice when you attempt something you previously avoided. Notice when you recover faster from setbacks. These are signs that beliefs are shifting. Evidence strengthens new patterns. Focused nightly practice also improves self-trust. When the mind sees that you consistently address limiting beliefs rather than avoid them, respect grows. Self-respect weakens internal sabotage. Limiting beliefs thrive in isolation. Share your intention to change with someone you trust if appropriate. External acknowledgement reinforces internal commitment. However, the practice itself remains private and personal. Avoid measuring progress by external results alone. Internal shifts often precede visible outcomes. Patience is required. The Stoic approach values effort over outcome. When resistance appears as boredom or doubt, continue calmly. Boredom often signals that the belief is losing emotional grip. Doubt is a sign of transition. Neither requires reaction. Over time, you may notice that certain thoughts no longer arise automatically. Silence replaces them. This silence is not emptiness. It is space for choice. Space allows intentional action. Focused nightly mental practice is an act of responsibility. It acknowledges that while you may not control past conditioning, you do control present training. This perspective restores agency. Do not rush the process. Limiting beliefs formed over years do not dissolve in days. Respect the pace. Steady effort produces lasting change. As beliefs loosen, behavior changes naturally. You may find yourself acting without overthinking. This is not impulsivity, it is clarity. The ultimate purpose of eliminating limiting beliefs is not comfort. It is freedom to act according to values rather than fear. Nightly practice builds this freedom quietly. Commit to this practice with seriousness but not tension. Approach it as training rather than therapy. The mind responds to discipline when it is calm and consistent. Over weeks and months, the inner dialogue shifts. What once felt impossible begins to feel unfamiliar rather than forbidden. Unfamiliarity invites exploration. Focused nightly mental practice does not remove all doubt. It reduces its authority. Doubt becomes a signal rather than a barrier. This is how limits are dissolved. Not through force, but through clarity, repetition, and steady attention applied when the mind is most receptive. Chapter 50. Strengthen discipline by setting clear intentions nightly. Strengthening discipline by setting clear intentions nightly begins with accepting a simple truth that many avoid. Discipline is not built in moments of pressure. It is built in moments of calm. What you decide when the day is quiet determines how you act when the day becomes demanding. Nighttime is where order is either created or neglected. When intentions are vague, mornings become reactive. When intentions are clear, action becomes structured. Most people think discipline is about forcing themselves to do unpleasant things. That belief alone weakens discipline. True discipline is about removing confusion before it appears. Confusion drains energy, clarity conserves it. Setting intentions at night is an act of preparation, not motivation. It is deciding in advance how you will behave so that emotion does not get a vote later. An intention is not a wish. It is not a goal. It is a decision about behavior. Goals point to outcomes. Intentions govern actions. Discipline grows when actions are chosen deliberately before resistance shows up. The mind follows instructions more easily when they are given early and without pressure. Nighttime offers a unique advantage. The pace slows. External demands recede. The mind is no longer pulled in multiple directions. This is the right moment to decide what matters most for the next day. Not everything, just what is essential. Discipline weakens when too much is demanded. It strengthens when focus is narrow and precise. Begin by reviewing the day that has passed without judgment. This is not a time for criticism. It is a time for observation. Notice where effort was strong and where it broke down, not to assign blame, but to identify patterns. Patterns reveal where discipline needs structure. After observation comes selection. Choose one or two actions that must be completed the next day regardless of mood. These actions should be realistic and within your control. Discipline is trained by keeping promises that are possible to keep. Each fulfilled intention strengthens trust in yourself. Broken promises weaken it. State intentions in direct language. Avoid conditional phrasing. Do not say if I have time or if I feel ready. Remove uncertainty. Clear intentions sound like decisions already made. The mind responds to certainty. Timing matters. Set intentions close to sleep. The mind carries unresolved thoughts into rest. When intentions are clear, the mind rests better because it knows what is expected. This improves focus the next day. Discipline also depends on sequence. Decide not only what will be done, but when and in what order. Ambiguity creates hesitation. Sequence removes it. Even a simple structure reduces friction. The mind prefers flow over choice. Avoid setting intentions based on ideal conditions. Life rarely cooperates with ideal plans. Discipline grows when intentions account for obstacles. Consider what might interfere and decide how you will respond. This is not pessimism. It is preparation. Emotional states change. Intentions should not depend on emotion. Discipline built on emotion collapses when emotion shifts. Discipline built on decision remains steady. Nightly intention setting also trains self-respect. Each time you decide deliberately, you affirm that your time and energy matter. This internal message accumulates. Over time, you stop negotiating with distractions because you have already chosen your direction. Clarity reduces mental noise. When the mind knows what to do, it stops searching for alternatives. This conserves willpower. Willpower is limited. Discipline protects it by reducing unnecessary decisions. Avoid writing long lists. Excessive planning creates overwhelm. Overwhelm leads to avoidance. One clear intention completed consistently is more powerful than many intentions ignored. The Stoic perspective values control over response. Setting intentions is an exercise in control. You cannot control external events, but you can control preparation. Discipline is the habit of preparing well. Intentions should focus on effort rather than results. Results depend on variables beyond your control. Effort does not. When intentions are effort-based, success is always available. This builds confidence in discipline rather than attachment to outcome. If intentions are missed, respond with adjustment rather than punishment. Harshness weakens discipline by associating effort with pain. Correction strengthens discipline by associating effort with learning. Nightly intention setting also clarifies priorities. When everything feels important, nothing receives full attention. Choosing intentionally means accepting trade-offs. Discipline requires the courage to exclude. As this practice continues, you may notice resistance shifting. Resistance often appears as procrastination or distraction. Clear intentions expose resistance quickly. When resistance is visible, it can be managed. Invisible resistance controls behavior. Intention setting also improves integrity. When actions match decisions, self-trust grows. Self-trust is the foundation of discipline. Without it, effort feels forced. With it, effort feels natural. Avoid relying on memory. Write intentions down or speak them clearly. Externalizing decisions reinforces commitment. The mind treats written or spoken intentions as more concrete than vague thoughts. Nightly repetition strengthens identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who decides and follows through. Identity shapes behavior more strongly than motivation. Intentions should evolve as capacity grows. Start small. Expand gradually. Discipline is trained progressively, not instantly. Clarity at night simplifies mornings. Mornings are not for decision-making. They are for execution. When decisions are made the night before, mornings become efficient. This practice also reduces anxiety. Anxiety often comes from uncertainty. Clear intentions reduce uncertainty. A mind that knows what it will do rests easier. Discipline is not rigid. It is adaptable within structure. Intentions provide structure. Adaptation occurs within that structure when reality shifts. Nightly intention setting also highlights what does not matter. Many distractions lose power when the mind is committed to something specific. As discipline strengthens, you may notice fewer internal debates. Action begins sooner. Completion feels cleaner. This is the result of reduced friction, not increased force. Intentions should align with values. Discipline without values becomes empty. Values give meaning to effort. Meaning sustains discipline over time. This practice is not about controlling every minute. It is about controlling direction. Direction matters more than speed. Night after night, clear intentions create a rhythm. Rhythm creates momentum. Momentum reduces resistance. Over time, discipline becomes less about effort and more about consistency. Consistency compounds. Setting intentions nightly is a quiet act of leadership over your own life. It is choosing order over chaos before chaos has a chance to appear. This is how discipline is strengthened, not through intensity, but through clarity repeated calmly at the end of each day. Commit to this practice with patience. Discipline grows gradually but steadily when guided by clear intentions made in moments of calm and honored through action. Chapter 6c Program Motivation Nightly to Wake with Purpose. Programming motivation each night, so waking comes with clear purpose, starts with a simple decision to treat sleep as part of the work rather than an interruption from it. The most reliable mornings do not happen by accident. They result from deliberate steps taken when the day is quiet and the mind is least distracted. Prepare the next day in small manageable moves that remove friction and create a built-in reason to move as soon as the alarm rings. Choose one meaningful intention for the morning and make it non-negotiable. This should be a single task that matters more than answering messages or scrolling feeds. Narrowing the focus prevents overwhelm and makes getting started obvious. When the mind faces a clear next move, it wastes less energy deciding and more energy doing. The mental economy saved by one well-chosen aim compounds across every day. Convert that intention into a physical checklist that sits next to the bed. Seeing one short line that reads exactly what to do removes the need to invent a plan upon waking. The checklist should use active verbs and short phrases like prepare tea, then write first paragraph, or put on shoes, then walk 20 minutes. Keep wording consistent night after night so the instruction becomes familiar and easy to follow. Before sleep, rehearse the morning once slowly and without drama. Picture the first 5 minutes in exact sensory detail, including the sound of the kettle or the feel of the floor beneath your feet. The brain interprets this rehearsal as familiarity rather than novelty. Familiarity reduces resistance. Practice this rehearsal as if you were rehearsing a short scene until the sequence feels ordinary and available. Align your environment with the intention. Lay out clothing, set the kettle, place a notebook where it belongs, and charge devices away from the bed. External preparation reduces small decisions that can derail momentum. Each removed decision is a tiny victory for willpower. The fewer choices the brain needs to make, the less opportunity for doubt to slow action. Use a precise alarm strategy that supports purpose, not panic. Choose a sound that is clear and steady rather than frantic. Make the alarm require a simple action that supports the aim, such as pressing a button on a bedside lamp that turns on a light you have already decided means begin. This couples waking with movement, so getting up becomes a ritual rather than a negotiation. Create a short pre-sleep statement that explains why the chosen morning action matters. This statement should be honest and anchored to something you control, such as effort, contribution, or learning. Place the phrase where you will read it before bed and again upon waking, so the reason for action remains front and center. Purpose sustained by a clear reason outlasts fleeting emotion. Limit late-night behaviors that sabotage energy. Avoid heavy meals close to bedtime and reduce artificial stimulation in the hour before sleep. Sleep quality affects motivation more than willpower ever will. When the body is rested, the mind can follow instructions with less internal conflict. Treat sleep hygiene as the foundation of daily purpose. Install a tiny reward that follows the morning action. Rewards should be immediate and proportional, such as 5 minutes of a favored quiet activity or a preferred beverage. Immediate reinforcement links the morning behavior to a pleasant result and accelerates habit formation. Keep rewards modest so they do not become the entire reason for action, but rather a gentle positive consequence. Practice a rapid start technique to get momentum within the first 10 minutes of waking. Choose one productive motion that requires low effort but yields a visible result, like making the bed or writing a single sentence. This small accomplishment creates psychological leverage that propels you into larger tasks. The goal is to produce evidence quickly, so motivation is supported by achievement rather than waiting for inspiration. Document one specific progress indicator each morning. It can be a metric such as words written, minutes exercised, or pages read. Keep the record minimal and objective. Over time, these small data points build a clear picture of forward movement and serve as proof that the nightly programming is effective. Evidence reduces doubt and tightens purpose. Use sound cues to mark transition points. A short musical clip or a brief two-tone chime can act as an auditory anchor, signaling the start of the work window. Pairing a specific sound with action trains automatic response. When you hear the cue, the brain begins the associated behavior with less deliberation. Anchor the audio cue to repeated practice until reaction becomes near automatic. If motivation fails occasionally, do not treat the lapse as failure. Instead, examine the simplest practical barrier and remove it before the next night. Troubleshoot with curiosity and a willingness to test small changes rather than with harsh criticism. Minor adjustments in preparation, sequencing, timing, or reward structure often resolve what felt like a motivation crisis. Cultivate morning accountability that fits your context. Commit to reporting one sentence about your morning action to a partner, a group, or a journal. Short accountability increases the social cost of skipping the task and raises follow-through. public or semi-public commitments strengthen resolve without needing dramatic self-coercion. Design an evening cooling ritual that signals the end of active planning and the start of rest. This might be 3 minutes of slow breathing, a brief review of the checklist, or dimming lights accompanied by a single line read aloud that affirms tomorrow's intention. The cooling ritual helps the nervous system shift from high alert to calm readiness, which improves the brain's ability to embed the intended behavior. Use progressive scaling to maintain motivation across weeks. Start with smaller actions that are easy to complete, then gradually increase the challenge in response to consistent success. This prevents early burnout and reinforces a steady sense of capacity building. Scaling keeps purpose fresh and measurable while avoiding sudden jumps that erode confidence. Integrate tactile anchors that support waking movement. A textured mat by the bedside, a smooth stone in your hand, or a sticky note you touch are small physical prompts that guide behavior before thinking overtakes action. Physical anchors are particularly helpful when mental fog makes decision-making slow in the first moments after waking. Make the morning action socially relevant when possible. If the work contributes to someone else or benefits a group, it often feels more compelling. Connection adds meaning and can convert a solitary task into a duty that is easier to honor. Purpose grounded in contribution tends to persist longer than purpose based only on personal reward. Practice gratitude, but keep it brief and specific. A short acknowledgement of what the morning task enables, such as the ability to improve a skill or to provide for someone else, adds positive emotion to the routine without creating dependency on mood. Gratitude reframes the task as an opportunity rather than a chore. Respect circadian rhythms and schedule demanding tasks for times when energy reliably peaks. Nightly programming should take into account realistic windows of alertness. Aligning the intended morning action with natural energy increases the probability of high-quality work and reduces friction that comes from forcing effort at unsuitable times. Automate preparation where possible. Use timers, smart plugs, or programmables to have the environment ready when you wake. Automation extends your preparation beyond conscious control and keeps environmental setup consistent, which supports purpose without adding cognitive load. Teach the mind to expect short-term difficulty followed by meaningful payoff. Rarely will the first minute feel enthusiastic. Accept that early resistance is normal and transient. The promise of a quick, visible result and a modest reward makes pushing through the initial reluctance a contained and predictable procedure. Measure motivation by consistency, not by intensity. Motivation that depends on peaks is unreliable. Instead, value the ability to start and to repeat the start frequently. The capacity to begin with purpose is a skill that strengthens through repetition and practical design. End each week with a short review of how well the nightly programming produced purposeful mornings. Note which elements reliably supported action and which require refinement. Use this simple feedback loop to improve ritual timing, language, and preparation choices rather than to judge willpower. Adopt a long-term perspective and accept incremental progress. Purposeful mornings compound in small steps. The sum of consistent short starts becomes a life shaped by intentional mornings rather than reactive days. The calm, steady habit of preparing for purposeful waking builds resilience and practical momentum that reshapes capacity over months. Treat nights as strategic planning sessions where the main objective is to reduce friction and to create one clear call to action for the morning. That call, when designed honestly and tested consistently, will transform waking from a negotiation into a continuation of an intention already accepted the night before. Chapter 7a. Direct subconscious focus toward goals before sleeping. Directing subconscious focus toward goals before sleeping is a practice of quiet alignment rather than force. The subconscious does not respond to pressure or urgency. It responds to clarity, repetition, and emotional neutrality. When the day ends, the conscious mind releases its grip. This is the moment when direction can be given without argument. The goal is not to obsess over outcomes, but to gently guide attention toward what matters so the mind continues the work while you rest. Most people go to sleep carrying unresolved noise. Thoughts jump between regrets, worries, and distractions, This scattered state trains the subconscious to prioritize survival reactions instead of purposeful progress. When focus is scattered at night, effort becomes scattered during the day. Directing focus before sleep restores order. Start by understanding that the subconscious does not think in lists or timelines. It thinks in images, feelings, and repeated ideas. If goals remain abstract, the subconscious cannot act on them. Before sleep, translate goals into simple concrete representations, not dreams of success, but scenes of effort, scenes of doing the work. Choose one primary goal at a time. Too many goals compete for attention and dilute focus. Select the goal that currently carries the most weight for progress. This does not mean it is the most exciting. It means it is the most necessary. The subconscious works best when direction is singular. Before lying down, create a short window of mental quiet. Reduce stimulation. Dim lights. Slow the pace of movement. This transition tells the nervous system that the external world is no longer demanding attention. Without this transition, goal focus will not settle. Once calm, bring the chosen goal into awareness without tension. Do not force visualization. Simply acknowledge the goal and then narrow attention to the next actionable step related to it. The subconscious cannot work on vague ambition. It can work on clear direction. Focus on effort rather than reward. Rewards are unpredictable. Effort is controllable. The subconscious builds pathways around what it believes you will actually do. When focus is placed on effort, action becomes more likely. Use brief mental statements that define direction. These statements should be factual and calm. They are not affirmations of greatness. They are reminders of commitment. Speak them internally with steady pacing. Avoid emotion-driven language. Calm authority creates trust. Do not repeat statements excessively. Quality of attention matters more than quantity. A few clear repetitions with full presence is more effective than many distracted ones. The subconscious absorbs what is given attention, not what is said mechanically. Pair goal focus with a physical signal. A slow exhale, relaxed posture, or gentle hand placement can anchor the state. This creates an association between calm focus and the goal. Over time, the body remembers the state and makes it easier to access. Avoid imagining obstacles at night. Problem solving is useful during the day. At night, focus on direction rather than difficulty. The subconscious is already skilled at pattern recognition. Give it the destination and the next step. Let it work quietly in the background. Directing focus does not mean forcing solutions. Often insights arrive spontaneously during the day because the subconscious processed information overnight. This only happens when the mind is given clear material to work with. Clarity invites insight. Do not confuse focus with obsession. Obsession is anxious and repetitive. Focus is calm and selective. If anxiety appears, return attention to breath and reduce the scope of the goal. Smaller focus restores stability. Goals should be framed in terms of contribution and growth rather than validation. The subconscious resists goals rooted in fear of judgment. It supports goals connected to development and responsibility. Choose language that reflects effort and service. Consistency matters. Directing focus once has limited effect. Repeating the practice nightly trains attention. Over time, the subconscious learns what deserves priority. This shifts behavior naturally without constant conscious effort. Avoid consuming chaotic information before sleep. News, arguments, and overstimulation fragment focus. Protect the final moments of the day. What enters the mind last often shapes the tone of rest and the direction of processing. If the mind wanders, gently return it to the goal. Do not criticize distraction. Redirection is part of training. Each return strengthens attention control. Keep expectations realistic. Directing focus does not produce instant breakthroughs. It produces alignment. Alignment reduces friction. Reduced friction increases consistency. Consistency leads to results. Over time, you may notice increased clarity upon waking. Ideas may feel more organized. Decisions may feel simpler. These are signs that the subconscious is engaged. Do not attempt to control dreams. Dreams are not necessary for this practice to work. The subconscious processes information regardless of dream recall. Trust the process without monitoring it. Maintain humility. The subconscious is powerful but not magical. It works in partnership with daily action. Nightly focus sets direction. Daytime effort fulfills it. As this practice deepens, goals may evolve. Pay attention to shifts in interest and energy. The subconscious may reveal priorities you had ignored. Adjust goals accordingly. Avoid comparing progress with others. Focus is personal. Comparison disrupts internal direction. Stay anchored to your path. Directing focus before sleep also improves emotional stability. When the mind knows what matters, it lets go of what does not. This reduces unnecessary rumination. Use simple language. Complexity creates confusion. Simplicity creates momentum. End each night with acceptance. Accept what was done and what was not. Carrying self-judgment into sleep fragments focus. Acceptance clears space for forward movement. This practice is an act of leadership over the mind. It replaces passive drifting with intentional direction. Over weeks and months, this leadership becomes internalized. The subconscious begins to filter information differently. Relevant ideas stand out. Distractions lose appeal. This is not discipline. It is alignment. Directing subconscious focus toward goals before sleeping is a quiet skill. It does not demand effort. It requires consistency and respect for the mind's natural rhythms. Treat the final moments of the day as sacred planning time, not for schedules but for direction. Give the mind one clear purpose and let rest do the rest. In time, you will notice that progress feels less forced. Action feels more natural. Focus becomes a default rather than a struggle. This is the result of nightly guidance applied with patience and clarity. Commit to this practice without expectation of immediate reward. The reward appears as steady progress and reduced inner resistance. That is the true sign of directed focus working as intended. Chapter 8. Replace doubt with certainty through nightly repetition. Replace doubt with certainty through nightly repetition by building a calm, dependable routine that trains belief through small, steady experiences rather than loud promises. Begin by accepting that certainty is earned through repeated demonstration, not through insistence. People often confuse confidence with convincing words, but what endures is the quiet accumulation of proving to yourself that you can act as intended. Nightly repetition creates a chain of evidence that the inner voice can rely on instead of second-guessing every decision. Pick one narrow conviction to develop at a time. Broad, vague claims dissolve quickly under pressure. A precise commitment, such as "I will complete one focused 30-minute work block each morning," is easier to prove and therefore easier to internalize. Smaller, resolvable commitments convert abstract desire into executable practice. When a small pledge is upheld again and again, the nervous system learns to expect success and doubt loses its grip. Design a short ritual to perform before sleep that restates the chosen conviction in plain action language. Use verbs that prescribe behavior. Avoid evoking grand outcomes that feel distant. Repeat the action sentence slowly and with full attention 3 to 5 times. Pause between repetitions and notice how the statement settles in your body. The body remembers patterns and anchors credibility in muscle memory as much as in thought. Include one brief memory of past competence immediately after each repetition. Call to mind a specific moment when you acted in line with similar values. Focus on what you did rather than how you felt about it. Memory supplies proof and proof weakens doubt. When the mind finds evidence in experience, it will favor that evidence over fearful speculation. Keep sensory elements intentional. A single scent, a particular chair, or a soft touch on the wrist repeated while making the statement will tie a physical marker to the developing certainty. Over time, the sensory marker becomes a shortcut that helps the mind access the settled state. Use something subtle and consistent so the association builds quietly rather than becoming another distraction. Limit the number of convictions you try to cement simultaneously. The brain favors depth over breadth. Persist with 1 or 2 anchors for at least 4 weeks before adding new commitments. This concentrated practice deepens the neural pattern and reduces the chance that the old habit of doubting simply migrates to another area. Measure progress by evidence, not by feeling. Feelings are changeable. Reliable indicators are observable behaviors completed and small measurable outcomes. Record a single line each morning noting whether the committed act occurred. This simple log becomes proof that doubt can be corrected with consistent action. Reviewing the record regularly rewires expectation from uncertainty to reliability. When hesitation appears, label it without judgment and return to the ritual. Naming an internal resistance as simply a momentary signal reduces its power. Respond to the signal with a tiny corrective step, such as sitting up or setting a timer for 5 minutes. Small corrective actions interrupt the circuit of avoidance and allow the new pattern to resume. Replace moral blame with practical troubleshooting. If a pledged act fails, investigate the smallest cause and adjust the plan. Maybe the timing was off or the environment contained too many distractions. Improve the system rather than attacking character. System improvements strengthen the likelihood that nightly repetition leads to real outcomes. Use language that narrows rather than expands. Certainty thrives on straightforward commands the mind can follow easily. Statements like "I will begin with one concrete task" function better than "I will become unstoppable." Keep phrasing present tense and action-oriented because the brain responds to immediate instructions more readily than to promises of future identity. Accept that certainty will grow unevenly. Expect some days of steady progress and occasional setbacks. Progress looks like a series of small, consistent steps, not a flat upward line. Notice the pattern of reliability rather than focusing on isolated failures. Over time, consistent success will outweigh sporadic doubts. Anchor nightly repetition to existing rituals so it does not compete for attention. Attach the practice to something already habitual, such as brushing teeth or dimming lights. Linking new behavior to established routines increases the chance the repetition will occur reliably and reduces cognitive friction. Practice brevity. Short, focused repetitions performed with presence are more effective than long, wandering monologues. The mind integrates clear, concise signals more efficiently. Keep the nightly ritual under 10 minutes so it becomes sustainable even on busy nights. Introduce progressive proof points into your plan. Begin with an easy test that is almost certainly achievable, and then gradually raise the bar as reliability increases. Each successive success builds a deeper layer of trust. The pattern of repeated wins teaches the inner critic that doubt is no longer the default. Cultivate a neutral, steady tone while practicing. Hyperbole and urgent emotionality stimulate stress circuits that interfere with learning. A calm, steady voice communicates authority to the nervous system and supports the formation of a dependable belief. Pair nightly repetition with morning verification. The first few minutes after waking are natural moments to check whether the acted intention carried over. Use that time to tick the single item on your small log and register the outcome clearly. The morning confirmation reinforces the idea that the bedtime instruction has practical effect. Protect sleep quality because consolidation is sensitive to how well the brain rests. Reduce late-night stimulation, heavy meals, and irregular sleep times so the mind can integrate the repeated signals with greater efficiency. A well-rested brain cements new patterns faster than one that is chronically fragmented. Avoid over-reliance on motivational peaks. Motivation is an unreliable currency. Certainty is built on structure. Design the nightly ritual so it does not depend on feeling inspired. Reliability comes from procedure, not from occasional intensity. Create modest, immediate rewards that acknowledge consistency. Rewards should be simple and aligned with long-term aims, such as an extra 15 minutes of reading after 7 consecutive successful mornings. These modest reinforcements help link repetition with positive association without undermining intrinsic motivation. Allow space for recalibration. The first formulation of a conviction may feel off. If the pledge triggers excessive resistance, then scale it down until it becomes maintainable. The purpose is not to craft an identity statement in a single night, but to produce repeated behavior that can be verified over time. Invite a witness if accountability helps you maintain practice. Report a concise status update to a trusted person or record a short voice note each morning. External acknowledgement strengthens internal momentum and creates additional evidence that doubts are being resolved through action. Notice how language influences stability. Replace absolute modal verbs with concrete verbs of action. Swap phrases like "I might try" with "I will begin." This subtle shift converts passive possibility into operational clarity that the mind can act upon. Understand that certainty is not the elimination of all questions. It is the reduction of paralyzing uncertainty that prevents the next step. The aim is to shorten the internal debate so action becomes the path of least resistance. Respect the rhythm of work and rest. If a committed act requires energy, schedule it at times when capacity is available. Nightly repetition should not create unrealistic demands that consistently fail because of timing mismatches. Design practice to match realistic capability. Record qualitative notes when progress feels subtle. Sometimes the change manifests as reduced internal chatter, smoother execution, or quicker recovery after interruptions. Capturing these soft signals provides a fuller picture of how doubt is yielding to steady belief. Practice self-kindness within the structure of discipline. Certainty emerges more reliably when the environment supports learning rather than punishes mistakes. Treat the nightly repetition as an experiment in skill building, not a test of worth. Over weeks, the accumulation of nightly confirmations shifts default expectation. Where doubt once anticipated failure, the mind starts to assume capacity. This change reduces wasted energy and increases clarity in decision-making. When habitual certainty is established, apply it selectively. Use the method to secure key behaviors that have outsized effect on your life. Once the pattern of replacing doubt is learned, it can be applied to new domains more quickly. Finally, remember that this process is gradual and practical. The work of swapping doubt for certainty is done one deliberate repetition at a time. A calm, regular routine creates a chain of experience that the mind trusts. That chain becomes the backbone of a steadier life, where decisions are followed by action and hesitation has less authority. Chapter 19. Develop emotional control using calm pre-sleep routines. Developing emotional control using calm pre-sleep routines begins with understanding that the mind processes emotions most effectively when external stimulation is minimal and attention is deliberately focused. Emotions are not enemies. They are signals about priorities and experiences. When left unmanaged, they can dominate thought and behavior the next day. Calm pre-sleep routines offer the opportunity to observe these signals without reacting impulsively, to acknowledge their presence, and to create internal space that allows emotional stability to form naturally. Start by reducing sensory input in the final hour before rest. Bright lights, loud sounds, and digital notifications trigger stress circuits and make emotional regulation more difficult. Dim lighting and quiet environments signal to the nervous system that it is time to slow down. This slowing creates readiness for reflection, observation, and deliberate mental practice. A mind that is alert, overstimulated, or distracted cannot stabilize emotional responses effectively. Include a brief period of structured reflection. Rather than revisiting every thought from the day, select one or two emotional experiences that were significant. Identify the trigger, the response, and the observed feeling without judgment. Labeling emotions calmly strengthens awareness. Awareness itself is the first step toward control because it interrupts the automatic cycle of reaction. Incorporate slow, deep breathing into this routine. Focused breath acts as a tangible anchor that directs attention away from spiraling thoughts and toward the present moment. The body's physiological state is closely tied to emotional experience. Slowing the breath signals safety and supports the nervous system in reducing reactivity. Even a few minutes of conscious inhalation and exhalation produces measurable reduction in emotional intensity. Pair this practice with deliberate muscle relaxation. Scan the body and consciously release tension from areas such as the jaw, shoulders, and hands. Emotional stress often manifests physically. Relaxation reinforces the mind-body connection, making emotional experiences easier to observe without being overwhelmed. This combined focus on breath and body prepares the mind to engage with emotions calmly. Establish a consistent timing for the pre-sleep routine. The brain thrives on pattern. Regular practice signals that this period is dedicated to reflection and calm rather than problem-solving or distraction. Consistency deepens the effect because the mind begins to anticipate stability at a specific time, making emotional regulation more automatic over time. Introduce a mental rehearsal of desirable responses. Think of a potential emotional trigger that might appear the next day. Imagine responding in a measured, controlled manner. Do not create fantasy scenarios of perfection. Focus on simple, realistic actions that are under your control. Repetition strengthens neural pathways associated with controlled responses, making them more accessible when real situations arise. Write down brief observations about emotional patterns before sleep. Journaling clarifies thought and externalizes feelings so they are no longer trapped in the mind where they can intensify. Keep entries concise, noting only the trigger, the feeling, and a simple factual observation. This process provides clarity and prevents rumination from carrying unresolved emotion into sleep. Use calming sensory cues such as soft music, gentle scents, or tactile comfort to reinforce the routine. These cues create a predictable environment that signals safety and stability. Over time, the mind associates these subtle markers with emotional regulation, enabling quicker access to calm states during stressful moments. Avoid analyzing or trying to solve emotional problems at this time. The purpose is not immediate resolution, but controlled observation. Solutions often emerge naturally after calm reflection or during the day when focus and energy are available. Attempting to force resolution while fatigued can intensify emotional reactivity and reduce the effectiveness of the routine. Apply a brief gratitude or acknowledgement practice. Recognizing small positive experiences or personal efforts during the day balances negative emotional signals and creates an internal baseline of stability. This is not about cheerfulness but about accurate perspective. Balanced perspective strengthens the ability to respond to stressors without overreaction. Reduce mental chatter by repeating a simple grounding phrase or counting breaths. A repeated focus prevents wandering thoughts from escalating into anxiety or regret. The rhythm of repetition promotes calm and signals to the subconscious that emotional processing has a structured container. Ensure physical comfort in bed. Discomfort amplifies emotional reactivity by triggering low-level stress responses. Adjust temperature, bedding, and sleep position to optimize relaxation. Physical ease supports the effectiveness of cognitive and emotional exercises, creating conditions for deeper calm. Practice detachment from urgent thinking. If worries arise, acknowledge them briefly and mentally set them aside. Use a phrase such as "I will address this at the appropriate time" to create cognitive separation. This trains the mind to distinguish between actionable concerns and unnecessary rumination. Include a brief visualization of a calm state. Focus on a place, sensation, or rhythm that evokes stability and restfulness. This reinforces the association between the pre-sleep routine and emotional equilibrium. Keep visualization simple and consistent. Repetition strengthens the neural link between routine and calm emotional baseline. Monitor and adjust the routine over time. Observe which elements consistently reduce emotional intensity and which do not. Refinement ensures that the routine is practical, sustainable, and aligned with individual needs. Flexibility prevents frustration and encourages adherence. Combine cognitive reflection, physical relaxation, and sensory cues into a seamless sequence that signals the mind to disengage from the day's emotional turbulence. This integration produces a compounded effect, each element reinforcing the others. Over repeated nights, emotional control becomes more automatic rather than forced. Prepare for transitions between wakefulness and sleep intentionally. Avoid jumping from high activity or intense engagement directly into rest. The calm pre-sleep routine acts as a bridge, smoothing the shift. This reduces the likelihood of unresolved emotion spilling into dreams or affecting sleep quality. Maintain neutrality toward emerging thoughts. Avoid judging yourself for what arises during the routine. Emotional control is strengthened by observation and acceptance, not suppression or harsh self-critique. Acceptance allows clarity to emerge while maintaining stability. Use this time to reinforce personal values. Reflect on how emotional responses aligned or misaligned with principles. Observing without judgment enhances self-awareness and promotes intentional behavior. Clarity about values strengthens emotional stability because responses are guided by deliberate choice rather than impulse. Track subtle changes in emotional reactivity over weeks. Note moments of reduced tension, faster recovery, or improved perspective. These indicators confirm that the routine is effective and motivate continued practice. Evidence of incremental improvement reinforces commitment. Avoid external disruptions during the pre-sleep period. Silence phones, close unnecessary tabs, and create a protected environment. Minimizing interruptions prevents external chaos from undermining internal regulation. Integrate this routine with other nightly practices such as intention setting or goal focus. Cohesive routines compound effects, allowing multiple dimensions of personal growth to reinforce emotional stability. When pre-sleep practices are aligned, the mind experiences synergy rather than conflict. Focus on process rather than immediate outcomes. Developing emotional control is cumulative. Expect gradual improvement rather than instant mastery. Consistent nightly practice trains the mind in real time and allows the subconscious to internalize regulation patterns. Recognize the long-term impact. Calm pre-sleep routines not only stabilize immediate emotional states but also shape daily reactions, decision-making, and resilience. Over months, habitual practice leads to greater poise under stress, improved problem-solving, and steady composure in challenging circumstances. Commit to this practice with patience and persistence. Emotional control is not achieved through force or fleeting effort, but through repeated, mindful attention to calm, structured reflection. By cultivating pre-sleep routines that integrate awareness, body relaxation, sensory cues, and observation, emotional equilibrium becomes a natural foundation for daily life and decision-making. Chapter 20. Commit mind nightly to disciplined personal growth. Committing the mind nightly to disciplined personal growth begins with the understanding that progress is built in the quiet hours when conscious effort can prepare the subconscious to act without hesitation. Personal growth is not a single event, but a continuous process of aligning thought, intention, and action. Each night offers an opportunity to reinforce habits, strengthen focus, and deepen commitment in ways that carry forward into every day. The mind is most receptive before sleep because distractions fade and the nervous system can absorb direction without interruption. Nightly commitment is the bridge between intention and consistent transformation. Start by reviewing the day with calm objectivity. Identify actions that advanced your personal growth and acknowledge small successes. Focus on patterns rather than isolated failures or achievements. Recognizing consistency over occasional spikes teaches the mind that disciplined effort is the path to mastery. Avoid self-criticism. Observation fuels improvement without draining motivation. Reflection is preparation, not judgment. Choose a single specific area for growth to anchor the night's practice. Narrowing the focus prevents overwhelm and ensures that the subconscious can process direction effectively. The chosen area might relate to skill development, emotional regulation, physical habits, or knowledge acquisition. The key is clarity. The mind can respond only to defined targets. Vague aspirations leave energy scattered and reduce impact. Create a short mental declaration that states the commitment clearly and directly. Use present tense, action-oriented phrasing such as "I will review," and apply one lesson from today's learning tomorrow morning. Avoid conditional language or abstract statements. The brain responds to precise instructions and develops patterns based on repetition. The act of stating commitment nightly strengthens the internal signal and reduces uncertainty about direction. Pair the mental declaration with deliberate visualization. Imagine completing a small, realistic action in alignment with the growth target. Picture the motion, the environment, and the sensory details involved. Visualization programs the nervous system for execution without requiring actual movement. The subconscious interprets repeated mental rehearsal as familiarity, which reduces resistance the following day. Incorporate a review of obstacles encountered during the day. Identify where resistance appeared and how it was navigated. Do not dwell on failure but note patterns that need adjustment. This process trains problem solving while preventing emotional escalation. By observing without attachment, the mind becomes skilled at recognizing challenges early and responding with discipline rather than reaction. Set a single measurable action for the following day. Focus on what is actionable, concrete, and achievable. Avoid overloading the plan with multiple ambitions. The mind can only internalize a limited set of instructions effectively. Completing one deliberate action consistently each day reinforces trust in personal capability and builds momentum over time. Integrate a brief journaling or note-taking habit to record reflections and planned actions. Writing externalizes thoughts and clarifies intent. A concise record provides evidence of progress and reinforces accountability. Over time, reviewing these notes reveals cumulative growth that can be difficult to notice day to day. The subconscious responds to tangible proof of consistency. Include calming sensory cues in the nightly routine. Dim lighting, gentle music, or a specific posture signals the body and mind that focus has shifted from the external world to internal development. Sensory consistency helps anchor the practice and makes it easier to maintain commitment without conscious negotiation. Over repeated nights, the mind associates these cues with disciplined preparation, increasing receptivity. Use slow, controlled breathing to stabilize physiological states. Emotional arousal or mental tension can interfere with absorption of nightly commitments. Controlled breathing lowers sympathetic activation and strengthens the connection between conscious direction and subconscious processing. Even a few minutes of focus on inhalation and exhalation enhances clarity and readiness for internalization. Avoid multitasking or distractions during the nightly commitment practice. Full attention is required for the mind to encode the direction effectively. Fragmented focus weakens the impact of repetition and leaves the subconscious uncertain. The quality of engagement matters more than duration. Review the alignment of actions with long-term values. Each night, consider whether choices, intentions, and behaviors reflect principles that matter most. When the subconscious understands that growth is meaningful and consistent with identity, discipline becomes automatic rather than imposed. Values provide the framework that sustains effort when motivation fluctuates. Acknowledge progress and lessons learned without exaggeration or self-flattery. Honest recognition reinforces internal trust while avoiding inflated expectations. Small incremental improvements compound over time. Celebrating these micro-wins strengthens the subconscious belief in capability and supports continued effort. Introduce tiny adjustments gradually. Discipline is reinforced through stable repetition rather than sudden dramatic shifts. Small, consistent changes allow the subconscious to adapt without triggering resistance. Gradual refinement ensures the practice is sustainable and builds reliable momentum for long-term growth. Rehearse potential challenges that may appear tomorrow. Imagine how you will respond calmly, deliberately, and consistently. Mental rehearsal reduces surprise and strengthens control, training the mind to anticipate obstacles rather than react impulsively. This builds resilience alongside discipline. Conclude the nightly practice with a brief statement of acceptance. Recognize what was done, what remains, and what can be improved. Acceptance prevents unresolved tension from carrying into sleep, ensuring that the mind rests while internalizing the growth direction. Rest reinforces mental consolidation of repeated commitment. Maintain a clear separation between this growth-focused practice and passive leisure or entertainment. The mind must learn to differentiate between active development and relaxation. Dedicated structure signals importance and strengthens internalization. Consistency in timing reinforces this distinction and improves absorption. Reinforce the habit by keeping the routine concise, practical, and repeatable. Nightly commitment should take enough time to be meaningful, but not so long that it becomes burdensome. Predictable length allows integration into daily life and supports sustainability. Use this time to consolidate intentions into subconscious expectations. The mind begins to anticipate consistent action as normal rather than optional. Repetition strengthens the neural pathways associated with disciplined behavior and reduces the likelihood of hesitation or avoidance. Focus on action rather than emotion. Emotional highs or lows are unreliable indicators for growth. Direct attention to deliberate steps that are within control. The subconscious learns to act on instruction rather than waiting for fluctuating motivation, making daily discipline easier and more natural. Regularly track cumulative progress over weeks. Observe patterns of improved consistency, reduced resistance, and increased competence. Evidence of tangible growth reinforces commitment and encourages persistence. Reviewing progress strengthens confidence in the effectiveness of nightly practice. Maintain flexibility within structure. Nightly commitment is disciplined but not rigid. Adjustments are acceptable when necessary to maintain realistic practice. Controlled adaptability ensures the mind remains engaged rather than resentful, preserving effectiveness of the routine. Finally, treat nightly commitment as a conversation with your future self. Each repetition is a deliberate instruction that carries forward into the next day, shaping behavior, decisions, and focus. The accumulation of consistent nightly guidance strengthens the mind's capacity to act reliably, reinforces discipline, and transforms personal growth from abstract intention into lived reality. Over time, the habit of committing nightly creates a stable foundation for achievement, resilience, and mastery that carries forward seamlessly into every day.